Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 4 quarterback starter sits for the 2019 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're going to be going over the news around the National Football League, then talking about matchups at the quarterback position, then going over my top 16 rankings going into Week 4. Before we begin today's video, let me remind all of you, if you haven't yet already, and I know many of you have recently, thank you for clicking that subscribe button and joining the community, clicking that bell notification button. I see all of you down there trying to get here for the first comment. I appreciate all of you. It's absolutely incredible. And if you haven't yet already, click that subscribe button, click that bell notification to be notified when my latest content comes out. And be sure to click that like button on today's video because it is so helpful and much appreciated by me. All right, guys, really quickly. Hey, how's it going? Let's talk about yesterday, right? So yesterday, during the Wide Receiver Wednesday video, to celebrate 9,000 subscribers, I decided on that video, from when it was posted to midnight Pacific Standard Time, I would be answering questions that were commented down below. And many of you know, I stopped answering public questions this season because it's a lot of time consumption, and that's exactly what it was yesterday. From 4 p.m. to 3 a.m., I sat there at this desk, and I answered questions. So for 11 hours, I consistently just, obviously some of you asked questions that were short and sweet. Some of you just wanted to say, thank you, Andrew. Those were the easiest ones. But there were some of you that were dropping paragraphs. And I know you would, and I appreciate you dropping the context so that I could respond. But those took pretty long. I sent some paragraphs to some people. So it was a lot of time, dedication, but it just, hopefully you guys can feel my appreciation. I'm willing to put in that time and that effort because I appreciate you guys so much. So hopefully that was, proven that I really do appreciate you guys. So those 11 hours, I'm never getting it back, but I don't want them back. So as long as we're on the same page, because I appreciate you guys and I'm willing to do that kind of stuff. So again, for those of you who were given a direct response, if you commented back to me, listen, there's a lot of you. There's almost 1,200 comments on that video. So it really, there's no way I'm going back and replying again. It was a one-time shot. I went from the bottom to the top as soon as midnight hit. I refreshed it and I made sure I looked down and I covered everything. So hopefully we're on the same page. Thank you guys again for joining the community. It's absolutely incredible, and we're going over to 10,000. I'm not saying we're going to be answering a million questions at 10,000, but we'll get somewhere. Okay, we'll get another announcement coming in. But thank you again. All right, so shall we talk about Week 4? A couple pieces of news that came out yesterday that I believe is pretty relevant to the landscape itself in fantasy football and the quarterback position. Number one, Melvin Gordon should be coming back. The rumors and the announcements were that he's going to be returning today to the team and that he will be playing in the coming future. Obviously, Austin Eckler owners, this is not the greatest news that you wanted to hear, but for those of you who were smart enough to grab Melvin Gordon and throw him on your bench and keep him there, you know what? You're going to see a lot of production coming in the near future. So here's the deal. Austin Eckler owners, I don't think he's completely dead of value. I think he is a flex option going forward. He's going to sit at that 25 to 36 range every single week at the running back position with the upside of a touchdown and making his week. That's how he produced last year. He finished as a top 24 running back last season in half PPR scoring format. So understand that Austin Eckler isn't completely dead. You don't have to completely ship him away or trade him, but if you can find value for him, I don't mind that. Understand, again, if Melvin Gordon goes down with an injury, Austin Eckler steps back up and goes back to being and reprising his role as a starting running back of this team and a great fantasy option. So that was information number one, piece of news. Number two was Dwayne Haskins. Potentially, if in fact Case Keenum throws the game this week and they're not able to catch a W and they start 0-4, Dwayne Haskins is probably going to be given the nod by Gruden over there in Washington, and there's going to be a chance that he takes over the quarterback position to see if they can get some experience under his belt. Maybe he can shift the entire culture and the streak to something towards winning. They got to trend somewhere. And if Case Keenum can't get them there, I understand they've had a tough schedule, but they got to catch a W anytime soon. But we'll see where that goes. But for those of you who play in a Superflex league, because this is quarterback related, you should go probably pick him up, especially if you don't have a third quarterback. Stash him on your bench and be ready, because this week could be something of that nature where Dwayne Haskins gets the opportunity, especially considering Keenum is a little banged up, was limited yesterday in practice, but returned full today. All right, let's talk about the quarterback position. This is typically a shorter video. Timestamps are down below for those of you who are interested. Let's really quickly go over the matchups at the quarterback position before we get into our rankings. As we all know, the Dolphins give up the most points to opposing quarterbacks. The Saints give up a lot of points to opposing wide receivers. Therefore, quarterbacks in exchange are also getting a lot of points. But it's pretty insane how the Saints in 6-point per passing touchdown formats are just as bad as the Dolphins. No one would ever anticipate that in terms of fantasy, because we look at the Dolphins and we think to ourselves, wow, they got, 59 dropped on them in week 1, 42 dropped on them in week 2, or was it 42 or 43 by the Patriots? And then this past week against the Dallas Cowboys were slow out the gate, but then still put a number on them. Yet, I don't even know how, the Saints are struggling defensively. The Cardinals, the Giants, the Redskins, who play each other this week, the Texans, the Colts, the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Chargers, all of them struggling against opposing quarterbacks thus far this season. Really, the separation between the Texans and the Washington Redskins is a pretty big deal. That's almost a 6-point swing there in terms of production and fantasy points. So I would say the top 5 right here, where it goes Miami to Washington, those are the worst team against opposing quarterbacks. You want to play in those matchups. Everything below that, it kind of begins to kind of clump up and be very similar until we get back down all the way to the teams in the red down below, where the Titans begin, all the way to the Patriots. Those are the tougher matchups. Titans get to play against Matt Ryan, another test for him. The 49ers are on a bye week. Carolina gets to put Deshaun Watson to the test. The Bears get to play against Kirk Cousins, who hasn't played well at all this season. The Cowboys get to put Teddy Bridgewater to the test. The Buffalo Bills get to put Mr. Tom Brady to the test. The Broncos play against Minshew. The Rams play against Winston. The Packers play against Wentz. And the Patriots, who are only allowing, does that say 3.9? Or what the heck? Is it really 3.9 fantasy points? Oh my God. They have yet to allow a passing touchdown thus far this season. But again, it has to do with their schedule. Ben Roethlisberger looked terrible in week 1. The following week against the Ryan Fitzpatrick mess of throwing interceptions, that happens. And then you get to play against Nick Folk? It's a lot of it has to do with the matchup. I think even though I believe Josh Allen is going to struggle, he's not going to be that bad. I promise you that. But just to kind of give you some context on how defenses are playing against opposing quarterbacks thus far this season, for those of you who are interested, I know many of you are, this is the context, so do with it as you may. Thank you again. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about my top 16 rankings, beginning with my top 8 quarterbacks on the week. All right, let me resettle myself here. Alrighty. So, number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. Is that any surprise? Absolutely not. Patrick Mahomes is on fire. He doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon, whether Tyreek Hill is in the lineup or not. Patrick Mahomes continues to produce. Even with Damian Williams out of the lineup, does not matter. They can use McCoy. They can use Darrell Williams. They can use Darwin Thompson. This offense is so foolproof that it doesn't matter who is in the backfield. You could put Frank Gore in this backfield, who's not a terrible running back at all, but you can make him an RB1. I promise you that. That's how good this entire offense is. Patrick Mahomes is a generational player. It's incredible. So this coming week against the Lions, I feel bad for that defense. They're going to get a quick number put on them. He's my number 1. Moving on to number 2, Russell Wilson, who's been absolutely fantastic this season. But let me explain to you why Russell Wilson has been so good just recently. In terms of their matchups, they have gone down early in games. And Russell Wilson has been put to the test, and he's looking a lot like what he was doing in 2017. And for those of you who don't remember, in 2017, Russell Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, was the number 1 overall quarterback in 6-point per passing touchdown formats because of the fact that the guy was he led the team in rushing yards that year. He was doing everything. He was purely the MVP of this team, 30-plus touchdowns, getting after it. So Russell Wilson kind of had glimpses of that last week, when they went down early to the Saints. The guy had to put it into hyperdrive. Chris Carson's fumbling like a mess, and he decided, okay, I'm going to carry this ball because I know I won't fumble. I'm going to feed the rock to my plethora of receivers, especially Tyler Lockett, the new addition of Will Disley coming back from his season-ending injury last year, really being a vital part of this offense. And then just being able to come back in games, score with 0-0-0 on the clock in the fourth quarter. Sure, it's garbage time, but it still counts. I don't care. So Russell Wilson going into the Cardinals matchup, which is very favorable, should be good to go. We're starting to see that MVP Russ. That there's a reason why they paid him that big money. I don't know why they paid Goff all that money, but Russell Wilson, it makes sense. Moving on, number 3, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson again gets to go put his skills to the test against the Carolina Panthers this week. Here's the thing about Deshaun Watson. Last week, he doesn't really use DeAndre Hopkins much in those tough matchups. I don't understand it. DeAndre Hopkins really wasn't getting anything going. He had to outsource. That's the exact definition of a good quarterback. When you can spread the ball to multiple targets, and it doesn't matter who you're feeding the ball to, similar to Patrick Mahomes, like I talked about earlier. When Deshaun Watson can do that and feed the ball to his tight ends that are very rarely used, Darren Fells and Atkins, when you can go ahead and feed those guys and have all of your 3 touchdowns associated with a tight end, which the Texans rarely use, that's how you know that this quarterback is maturing. He's able to look away from his first and second read and feed other guys in this offense and able to win games. So going into this matchup against the Panthers, I'm not really worried about it. I think, sure, the pass rush that got after Kyler Murray is going to get after Watson this week, but he's got too much value. He's got too much arm strength, and he's got too much mobility, in my opinion, to be shut down in this kind of a matchup. I have him as my number 3. Moving on to number 4. Speaking of more mobility, we have Lamar Jackson, who, didn't have a great week last week, but was serviceable. He got his touchdown, and made some ridiculous plays. Obviously, we wanted some more production, but this coming week, we'll probably see that. He gets to play against the Browns this coming week, who have not looked good. And to be honest, I think this is going to be a one-sided affair because of how good the Ravens have been defensively, offensively. I think Lamar Jackson could blow out this team. If, in fact, let's say, for example, Baker Mayfield comes out and he looks sharp, that doesn't even hurt Lamar. That actually promotes this kind of a matchup to being a higher scoring affair and having him throw the ball more, which is perfectly fine. But either way, Lamar Jackson, even though he wasn't able to produce much last week, still has a great opportunity going forward to be a top 5 quarterback as such. So he's my number 4. Moving on to number 5. Phillip Rivers playing against the good old Miami Dolphins defense. I think Phillip Rivers, 2 touchdowns is guaranteed. 3 might be a reach because I really do think that as soon as this team gets up early, they're going to feed the ball in the red zone to the running back position. They always do that. And I think there's a possibility that after Keenan Allen and or Mike Williams catches a touchdown early in this game, it ends up being where he gets his 20 fantasy points and then they're running the clock out. So that's always a possibility, especially when you play against the Dolphins. But I still do believe Phillip Rivers has a very good upside this week. If, in fact, this gets competitive at all, Phillip Rivers can light it up and surely can go for that 3-4 touchdown kind of game. All right, moving on to number 6, Aaron Rodgers going against the Philadelphia Eagles today on Thursday Night Football. Yes, it is Thursday, and it is a good matchup, and he is at home. I really do believe he's going to go back to feeding Davante Adams the ball. For those of you who want to go put down some money on a bet, go put down money that Davante Adams is going to catch a touchdown today because I really do believe it is going to happen. It's far too long. You can't go 3 weeks and be Davante Adams and not catch a touchdown. He might even have a 2-touchdown game. They're going to have a pretty good matchup. The secondary, the Eagles have struggled, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to expose that. Therefore, that is why he is my number 6. Moving on to number 7, Matt Ryan. I heard an interesting stat the other day that Matt Ryan is the first quarterback in NFL history to have an 80% passing completion percentage in a game with 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns and still lose. The 19 other quarterbacks that had those stat lines had all won their respective games. Last week, he lost against the Indianapolis Colts with that stat line. The guy is putting up numbers. He's looked fantastic thus far. Obviously, his turnover rate can be reduced, but he is getting the ball out of his hands. He is feeding his receivers, whether it be Julio, Ridley, sometimes he disappears, Mohamed Sanu steps up. Austin Hooper comes out of nowhere. He's feeding everyone within this offense, and they've looked good offensively. This coming week into the matchup against the Titans, obviously the run game is going to be stuffed. Devontae Freeman, rest in peace this week. But Matt Ryan is going to be able to air it out, and I believe he's going to find some success there. That's why he's my number 7. Moving on to number 8, Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott, 100%, is a better than number 8 quarterback. But I do think that in New Orleans, it's a completely different, conversation with this defense. The defense, the 12th man, the energy of that arena, being able to hear, it becomes very difficult. If, in fact, the defense for the Dallas Cowboys can dictate this game and can force Teddy Bridgewater out of the game and take away Alvin Kamara, which they've struggled against at times, Dak Prescott can find himself in a better situation and be a top 5 quarterback this week. But I do think without Michael Gallup, there's going to be a little bit of struggle if Amari Cooper, who is ailing from an injury right now, can't consistently get something going, and if Zeke is getting shut down. The Saints are good against the run. And if you can't establish that running game and you have to force Dak to pass the ball, sure, he's been really good at it all season long, but I'm just a little weary. Maybe I'm just thinking about it. Maybe he's set to go, but you never know. I still think he's an absolute start. Don't get me wrong, he must be started. If he's on your roster, must be started. All right, moving on. Let's talk about my last 8 quarterbacks of this week. So here's the thing. Tom Brady gets to play against the Bills. The Bills aren't a joke of a defense, and I don't think Tom Brady's a joke of a quarterback. He really should have probably been in that top 8, but there are some guys that have really favorable matchups that I wanted to mention before him, and I think that are better plays than him this week. I think there is a potential where Tom Brady, disappears in one of these games, and they have 3 rushing touchdowns, one to Sony Michel, one to Rex Burkhead, and one to potentially the fullback. James Devlin, maybe he comes and steals one. There's always a potential of that happening in one of these games. We saw it a lot last season. That's why a lot of people were pissed off about Tom Brady's value last season. But this coming week, still a good matchup. I think against the Bills, at the Bills, doesn't really bother me. Tom Brady only gets better as the season progresses, and he's been pretty damn good thus far. But this is their true test. They haven't really played against a winning team thus far this season. All the teams that they have played against thus far this season have yet to win a game. So this is their biggest test against the 3-0 Bills. I think he's going to be pretty good this week, to say the least. He's my number 9. Moving on to number 10, Kyler Murray. The Seattle Seahawks defensively have not been great. They've been giving up a lot of points, and I think Kyler Murray in this offense, being able to spread it out in their formations, can find some success. Obviously, the pass rush of the Carolina Panthers last week was very detrimental to him in the second half. Really did not help him at all. Forced some turnovers from Kyler Murray, and I think going forward, they need to fix that. You can't really do anything right now in terms of fixing that offensive line. Obviously, the draft is just around the corner for the team like this who has yet to win a game. But what are they? 0-2-1? Yeah, yikes. But as of right now, in terms of Kyler Murray's production this week, in terms of fantasy, I think he's set. I think against the Seahawks, who have struggled against Teddy Bridgewater, especially last week, Kyler Murray right now I think is just as good as Teddy Bridgewater. Obviously, the offense that surrounds him is not as great. Obviously, they're forcing Kyler Murray to throw the ball heavily, but he should be able to figure it out this week. He's my number 10. Moving on to 11, Carson Wentz. Against a tough defense, the Green Bay Packers have been really consistent all season long, and I still think Carson Wentz will be able to produce. You get Alshon Jeffrey back. You still have Nelson Aguilar. You still have Zach Ertz. They're going to be able to pass the ball, and that's all they're going to be able to do. The running games might squander because of the fact that they don't like to run the ball very often there in Philadelphia. So Carson Wentz going to have to air it out, going to have to use his arm. Maybe a couple turnovers occur, but Carson Wentz still going to come back out and throw it heavily and throw it often. He's my number 11. Moving on to the last of my top 12 quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the thing about the Chiefs matchups. Anytime you're a quarterback, you have to understand that, or anytime you play against the Chiefs in general, the Chiefs' offense is so good, they're going to score no matter what. So as an opposing quarterback, you can't come out and start throwing it on first downs, because that's when the Chiefs take a lead. If you come out and you can't string together a drive and get at least into field goal range, what happens is, Patrick Mahomes comes back out, puts 14 on you. Another 3 and out, 21. Another 3, 24. And then you're struggling and having to pass all day long. Matthew Stafford is a quarterback that can pass all day long. He has the weapons. He has the offensive line for it. He has a receiving back. He has the bigger tight end that, yes, they haven't used in the last couple of weeks, but I think this may be the week to get Hawkinson back in it. They have Galladay. They have Marvin Jones, who had a pretty big week last week. I think Stafford, again, has shown some skill thus far this season comparatively to last year where he struggled, and I think Stafford is trending towards the right direction. He's my number 12. All right, let's talk about the last 4 guys I wanted to mention. Daniel Jones at 13, playing against the Washington Redskins, had a fantastic week last year with 4 touchdowns, feeding Ingram, feeding Shepard. Yes, they don't have Saquon, but they didn't have Saquon for majority of the game last week, and they truly didn't need him, and I don't think they'll need him this week. I think the secondary of the Washington Redskins is awful. Again, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, they've given up 6 touchdowns. The corners for the Redskins have given up 6 touchdowns thus far this season, more than any other team at the position this season. So as of right now, Daniel Jones, with a great offensive line, playing good against pressure. Anytime he was pressured in the pocket, the guy even got better in terms of overall QBR and everything. So as of right now, Daniel Jones, I have trust in you. I think that was not a fluke of a performance. You should be fine in week 4 here. Moving on to Jared Goff at number 14. Jared Goff should be fine. I don't really buy into this whole, the Tampa Bay defense is elite, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in that. I guess only time will tell, but I really do believe that this offense is going to be able to pluck them apart here and there. And Jared Goff, yeah, he hasn't looked great, but he is going to be his 2-touchdown self. Because of the fact that this running game isn't moving very often and they haven't been able to feed the ball to Gurley very much, it only helps Jared Goff in the red zone in the idea that he can throw the ball to Kupp or to Cooks or to Woods if he finally wants to, or to Higbee or Everett. So he has a lot of weapons, and I think passing is the way to go for this team going forward. He's my number 14. Number 15, Jacoby Brissett, playing against the Raiders. It's too easy of a matchup in my eyes. They are at home this week at Lucas Oil Stadium. You might not have T.Y. Hilton, but the tight end position on that team is stacked. They're going to be able to get down the field by just running the ball. Then he'll feed the ball to the Ebrons, to the Doyles, to the Mo Alley Cox, and one of them is maybe two of them score touchdowns this week. I still have a lot of confidence in Jacoby Brissett. There are still other, sleeper wide receivers on that team: Deion Kane, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal, Chester Rodgers. There are contributing factors that are going to make Jacoby Brissett a better quarterback this week. That's why I have him at 15. My last quarterback on the week, that is correct. I have Kyle Allen of the Carolina Panthers this week as my number 16, above Josh Allen, above Case Keenum. I have decided to put Kyle Allen here because of how good he was last week. Sure, he played against the Cardinals, but I do not think that the Texans defense is that much of an upgrade in the sense that he 100% is going to be destroyed. I think Kyle Allen, with the scheme and the entire offense that surrounds him in this Norv Turner-led offense, fits pretty comfortably. He has shown it in the last 2 starts of his career that he is comfortable in this offense and he can make plays. There's so much talent around him. McCaffrey, Olsen, Moore, and Samuel. I cannot see a possibility in which Kyle Allen isn't able to produce in this matchup this coming week, and that is why he is my last quarterback on today's list. I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, in one of the shorter videos of the week, but again, thank you again. If you haven't yet already, click that subscribe button, click that like button, and later today there will be a tight end rankings top 12 video coming out, so stay tuned for that. It'll be like somewhere over there. There's going to be a subscribe button here, and then behind it, somewhere tight end video. You can click on it, watch it. Thank you again, and good luck today on your Thursday matchups. Hopefully all goes well. See you guys.